whatever else you might have seen, heard, or read anywhere else about Russell Wilson, his current standing with the Steelers, know this: he's gone. And as of yesterday, I am no longer guessing at that. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also cover the Penguins and the Pirates, and I hope you'll check those daily shots out as well. I'm in New York to cover hockey, and I spent a pretty significant percentage of my drive here talking to people inside the football team. Not secondhand, not third party, people inside the football team, as in the football operation. And what I've found out isn't something that knocked me over. It probably won't knock you over. But Wilson's done a lot of things to make a lot of people mad inside that building. And he is not wanted back. He will not be back, no matter how many people he tells that he wants to be back or that he's keeping things open for the Steelers or whatever it was that he said at the Pro Bowl. He is not going to be asked to return. The main reason for this, based on these conversations, is that he just didn't play well. Okay, set aside all the drama and all the various reports about Russ and others in the organization that have circulated over the past week. Some of those coming from real live reporters, a lot of those just emanating from random basements, because it's, that time of year when nothing's actually happening in football other than, that little game on Sunday. And what's left behind is a 5-game collapse that had a whole heck of a lot to do with quarterback performance. That's not blaming the quarterback. That's not blaming one player. That would be really stupid when you're talking about a sport that involves 53 players and 27 coaches. But that doesn't make all such situations equal. Wilson, of course, is playing the game's most important position, and Wilson, very obviously, did not play well. So, okay, he doesn't play well. Mike Tomlin sticks by him anyway, right through the playoff game in Baltimore. And what's the problem? What would have had everybody becoming so sour? Well, I'm going to share this with you in a way that accounts for these conversations that I had yesterday not being formal interviews, and they absolutely were not. But what I can say, here's a couple of things. One, the thing that was passed along in a local newspaper earlier this week about Arthur Smith not allowing Wilson to make any kind of adjustments at the line the week after Wilson put up 44 points in Cincinnati is laughably, outrageously, and provably not true. Now, that's not me going after any other media or any other reporter. It's going after the people on Wilson's side who are believed to have put forth this, nonsense, really. And I'm going to be honest with you. If those people called me, if Wilson's people called me and said, hey, we heard this thing about how Arthur Smith was after I would certainly listen. I would likely share it, but I would also, place a couple other calls to see what the other involved party might have to say about that. This thing that came from Wilson's side is a non-thing. There's nothing of the kind that's ever been the case with Smith, not in Atlanta, not in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields at quarterback, not in Pittsburgh with Wilson at quarterback, and abso-bleeping-lutely not after somebody puts up 44 points. Sometimes common sense just has to come into play and override headlines that don't make any sense. So from there, the other thing that I can very safely and very representatively share with you is that they don't want him back. They were aware beforehand, as was the entire football world, what had happened in Denver between Russ, Sean Payton, and the coaches out there. They were aware of the things that he was reported to have tried to get those coaches in, I don't know if you'd call it hot water or whatever, but just to stir things up and to deflect attention from whenever he wouldn't play well. And that, my friends, is what this is. That's what this is. Russ didn't play well. And no, he didn't adhere to the system or the play calls. That has nothing to do with handcuffing this or that or anything. It has to do with he would take the ball. And again, this is stuff that we talked about on this program all season long, even when things were going well. He held the ball forever. He'd back off plays at the line of scrimmage for no reason, then just kind of space out and leave the rest of the offense hanging. When he did try to get out of trouble, and I only talked about this, 10 times a week, he'd act as if he was still 26 years old and wearing a Seattle Seahawk on his helmet, that he could just get out of anything. And he couldn't get out of even a modest pass rush. And on top of all that, something that I had not discussed with you before, but I heard yesterday, is that he wasn't throwing the ball with the same zip. You'd see the moon balls, and that would overcome a lot, including perception, because you just throw a prayer up, hope that George Pickens runs under it. If he does, there's a really good chance he's going to come down with it. But that doesn't hide everything else that everyone else on the inside was seeing. Add to that this silliness after the season, and yeah, he is gone. When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454. Today's J1Q comes from DV, who, in reference to yesterday's program that focused almost entirely on Arthur Smith, he says, DK, the man was handed an offense that had been 80% revamped with personnel in the offseason. The line was patchwork, and the receiving core beyond George Pickens was unproven at best. Arthur will be fine. Knee-jerk fans need to chill out and see what happens over the next 2-3 years. I'm with you on this, but I'm going to share this in a context that's actually outside Smith or any of the specifics of the 2024 season. Don't think about Smith here. Think about Andy Weidel. Think about the way the upper part of the Steelers football structure was put together after Kevin Colbert was gone. It was Omar Khan as GM, it was Weidel as assistant GM, and it was everybody, Mike Tomlin included, on board with a Philadelphia-style approach to being big, nasty, self-willed, and shoving your way down the field. That doesn't mean 1970s. It doesn't mean yard and a half in a cloud of dust. It means that if you have that as your foundation, you can get a whole lot of other things done. Then Smith becomes available after his 3 years in Atlanta. And he's brought here, and he's part of that plan. That plan couldn't have conceivably succeeded in a single year, even if all those things you mentioned weren't problems. We talk about 80% revamped with personnel. Well, sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad. It is a lot of change. The change also includes the schematics, the alignments. But when you're talking about the line, you're talking about losing Troy Fautanu, and not enough people talk about that. That's almost just gets tossed off as if he was never going to be a part of this. He had just taken over Broderick Jones' spot. Jones was not, over the course of this past season, part of the solution. That was a big, big deal. Wide receiving core, you say, beyond Pickens was unproven at best. I think that's a fair characterization of it. I also think it's fair to point out George's own shortcomings and whatever it was that happened to Roman Wilson. And for that matter, why Najee Harris never really seemed to take that next big step toward where you'd hoped he'd have gotten as a first-round running back. Does that 100% take Smith off somebody's hook? I would think not. But let's also remember the one thing that Art Rooney pointed out about Smith in his meeting with us a couple weeks ago. When Rooney was asked about him, Rooney's first response was about the change in quarterbacks. It was about having to come up with two different systems for two very different guys. They don't want to do that again. They want Justin Fields to be their number one quarterback. They want the other quarterbacks to function in a similar, if not necessarily identical fashion. And they want there to be, and please bookmark this word because you're going to be hearing it from me a lot this summer. They want there to be an identity for this offense. Not a wish, not a hope, but something real. Not something that they do for a few weeks, then flip to something else, but something real, something sturdy, something cemented, something a lot like, the Eagles are going to be taken onto the field this Sunday. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.